The shrill ring of my phone pierced through the chaos of the wedding reception I was overseeing. I glanced at the caller ID and felt my stomach drop. Nathan. My husband's timing couldn't have been worse. Marissa, where the hell are you? Nathan's voice crackled through the speaker, dripping with venom. I stepped away from the bustling dance floor, my heels clicking against the polished marble. Nathan, I'm at work. You know I have the Peterson wedding tonight. Work? Always work with you, isn't it? He spat. Did you forget about Lily's rehearsal dinner? Your own sister-in-law? My heart sank. Lily's rehearsal dinner. How could I have forgotten? I glanced at my watch, realizing with horror that it had started over an hour ago. Nathan, I'm so sorry. I completely lost track of time. I'll be there as soon as I can. Don't bother, he cut me off. It's almost over. You've embarrassed me enough for one night. Please, let me explain to Lily. Oh, I'm sure she'll understand, Nathan's voice dripped with sarcasm. After all, it's only the most important day of her life. But hey, at least you didn't miss planning some stranger's wedding, right? I felt the sting of tears in my eyes. That's not fair, Nathan. This is my job. I can't just... Your job? He laughed bitterly. Your precious job is more important than family? Than me? Before I could respond, a commotion near the cake table caught my attention. The bride was gesturing wildly, her face flushed with anger. Nathan, I have to go. There's an emergency with the bride. We'll talk about this when I get home, okay? Don't bother coming home tonight, he snarled. I'm sure you can find a nice cozy office to sleep in. The line went dead. I stood there, phone in hand, feeling like I'd been punched in the gut. How had my life come to this? Marissa! Janice, my boss, called out. We need you over here, Stat. I took a deep breath, plastered on my professional smile, and hurried over to defuse the situation with the bride. As I smoothed things over and got the reception back on track, Nathan's words echoed in my head. Hours later, as I locked up the venue, exhaustion settled into my bones. The thought of going home to face Nathan's wrath made my stomach churn. I pulled out my phone, hesitating before dialing Lily's number. Hello? Her voice was soft, tinged with disappointment. Lily, I'm so sorry about missing the rehearsal dinner, I began, my voice cracking. I got caught up at work and... It's okay, Marissa, she interrupted gently. I understand. Nathan told us you had an emergency with a client. I blinked, surprised. He did? Yeah. He seemed pretty upset, though. Is everything all right between you two? I swallowed hard. We're fine. Just a little stressed with work and the wedding planning. Well, don't work too hard, Lily said. We need our star wedding planner in top form for the big day. As I hung up, a mix of emotions swirled inside me. Relief that Lily wasn't angry, confusion over Nathan's unexpected cover story, and a gnawing dread about what awaited me at home. I climbed into my car, my hand hovering over the ignition. Go home and face Nathan's fury, or take him up on his suggestion to find somewhere else to sleep tonight? The choice I made in that moment would set in motion a chain of events that would change my life forever. Little did I know, the real storm was just beginning. I sat in my car, parked outside our house, my hands trembling on the steering wheel. The porch light was on, casting an eerie glow across the manicured lawn. Nathan was waiting for me. I closed my eyes, memories flooding back of how we got here. It all started in high school. Nathan was the charming quarterback, and I was the quiet girl with big dreams of planning lavish events. He swept me off my feet with grand gestures and promises of a perfect life together. You're going to be the best event planner in the state, he'd say, his arm draped around my shoulders, and I'll be right there, supporting you every step of the way. Those words echoed in my mind as I finally mustered the courage to enter our house. The moment I stepped inside, I knew something was wrong. The air was thick with tension, and Nathan's silence was deafening. Nathan, I called out, my voice barely above a whisper. He appeared from the shadows of our living room, his face a mask of controlled anger. Well, look who finally decided to grace us with her presence. I'm sorry about missing Lily's dinner. I lost track of time at work and... Work. He spat the word like a curse. Always work. Tell me, Marissa, when did your job become more important than your family? Than me? I flinched at his tone. That's not fair, Nathan. You know how hard I've worked to get where I am. This was my dream. Your dream? He laughed bitterly. And what about our dreams, the family we talked about, the life we planned together? Guilt washed over me. We had talked about starting a family, but I'd always found reasons to put it off. My career was just taking off, and I wasn't ready to give that up. I thought you supported my career, I said, my voice small. Nathan's eyes flashed dangerously. I supported you, Marissa. I've always supported you, but at what cost? You're never home. You missed Christmas with my family last year because of a client's New Year's Eve party. And now Lily's rehearsal dinner? I opened my mouth to defend myself, but he cut me off. Do you know how embarrassing it was to explain your absence? To watch my mother's disappointment? To see the pity in everyone's eyes? Tears stung my eyes. I'll make it up to Lily. I'll plan her the most beautiful wedding she could ever imagine. Nathan's laugh was cold and humorless. Of course you will, because that's what you do best, isn't it? Plan perfect days for strangers while neglecting your own family. His words cut deep, each one a dagger to my heart. I wanted to argue to defend myself, but a part of me wondered if he was right. Had I really lost sight of what was truly important? I'm sorry, I whispered, the fight draining out of me. Nathan's expression softened slightly, and for a moment I saw a glimpse of the boy I fell in love with all those years ago. He stepped closer, cupping my face in his hands. I love you, Marissa, he said softly. But something has to change. We can't go on like this. I nodded, relief washing over me. Maybe we could fix this. Maybe it wasn't too late. But then his grip on my face tightened, his fingers digging into my skin. From now on, you're going to start putting this family first. No more late nights at the office. No more missed dinners. And you're going to give Lily the wedding of her dreams, even if it kills you. Understood? I swallowed hard, a chill running down my spine. This wasn't the Nathan I knew. This wasn't the man I married. But as I looked into his eyes, I realized with a sinking heart that maybe it was. Maybe this was who he'd been all along, and I'd been too blind to see it. Understood, I whispered, sealing my fate with a single word. The alarm blared at 5 a.m., jolting me awake. I reached out to silence it, careful not to disturb Nathan. As I slipped out of bed, his words from last night echoed in my mind. No more late nights at the office. I tiptoed to the kitchen, my heart racing as I brewed coffee and scrolled through my overflowing inbox. 63 new emails. I'd have to tackle them before heading to the office. The sun was barely peeking over the horizon when Nathan stumbled into the kitchen, his eyes narrowing at the sight of me hunched over my laptop. Working already? He growled. I quickly closed the screen. Just checking the weather. He grunted, unconvinced, and poured himself coffee. The silence between us was suffocating. I was thinking, I ventured, maybe we could have dinner with your mom and Lily tonight, to make up for missing the rehearsal dinner? Nathan's face softened slightly. That's actually a good idea. I'll call them. As he left the room, I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. Small victories. At the office, Janice cornered me the moment I walked in. Marissa, where are we with the Goldstein wedding? They've been calling non-stop. I felt a pang of guilt. The Goldstein wedding was next week, and I was nowhere near ready. I'm on it, Janice. I'll have everything finalized by tomorrow. She raised an eyebrow. Tomorrow? Cutting it a bit close, aren't we? I nodded, ashamed. This wasn't like me. I was always ahead of schedule, always prepared. But lately, with Nathan's increasing demands and my attempts to balance work and family, I was dropping balls left and right. The day flew by in a blur of phone calls, vendor negotiations, and last-minute crisis management. Before I knew it, it was 6:30 p.m. Panic set in as I realized I was late for dinner with Nathan's family. I rushed into the restaurant at 7:15, out of breath and disheveled. Nathan's eyes flashed with anger as I approached the table. I'm so sorry, I gasped. There was an emergency with... Save it. Nathan cut me off, his voice low and dangerous. We've heard it all before. Lily jumped up to hug me, her smile warm and genuine. It's okay, Marissa. We're just glad you're here now. Grace, Nathan's mother, nodded in agreement, but I could see the disappointment in her eyes. It cut deeper than Nathan's anger. As we ate, I tried to steer the conversation towards Lily's wedding plans, hoping to smooth things over. So, have you decided on a color scheme yet? Lily's eyes lit up. Actually, I was hoping to talk to you about that. I know you're busy, but I was wondering if maybe you could help plan the wedding. It would mean so much to me. I felt Nathan stiffen beside me. We locked eyes, and I saw the warning there. Don't you dare say no. Of course, I heard myself say. I'd be honored. The rest of the dinner passed in a haze. As we said our goodbyes, Grace pulled me aside. Marissa, dear, is everything all right? You seem stressed. For a moment I considered telling her everything, about Nathan's controlling behavior, about the impossible balancing act I was trying to maintain. But then I saw Nathan watching us, his jaw clenched, and the words died in my throat. Everything's fine, I lied. Just busy with work. The drive home was silent. As soon as we walked through the door, Nathan exploded. What the hell was that? He shouted. You embarrass me in front of my family, and then you agree to plan Lily's wedding? Are you trying to make me look bad? Nathan, please, I pleaded. I'm trying my best. I thought you'd be happy I agreed to help Lily. He grabbed my arm, his fingers digging in painfully. Your best isn't good enough. You need to do better, for this family, for me. As I looked into his eyes, cold and unforgiving, I realized with startling clarity that I didn't recognize the man in front of me anymore. And worse, I didn't recognize myself. Something had to change. But as Nathan's grip tightened, I wondered if it was already too late. The morning after our disastrous family dinner, I woke to the insistent buzz of my phone. Lily's name flashed on the screen. I answered, my voice still thick with sleep. Marissa, I hope I didn't wake you, Lily chirped, her excitement palpable even through the phone. I just couldn't wait to start planning. Are you free for lunch today? I glanced at the clock, 7:30 a.m. Nathan had already left for work, leaving behind a terse note reminding me to be home for dinner. Sure, Lily. How about noon at Cafe Rosemary? As I hung up, a mix of emotions swirled within me. Excitement at the prospect of planning Lily's wedding warred with anxiety over Nathan's potential reaction. But I pushed those thoughts aside. This was for Lily, and I was determined to make it perfect. At the cafe, Lily's enthusiasm was infectious. She pulled out a binder bursting with magazine clippings and Pinterest printouts. I was thinking a spring garden theme, she gushed. Lots of pastels, wildflowers, maybe even butterflies. I found myself caught up in her joy, my professional instincts kicking in. We spent hours poring over color swatches and venue options, the time flying by. It wasn't until my phone buzzed with a text from Nathan that reality came crashing back. Where are you? Dinner's in an hour. I looked at my watch in horror. It was already 5 p.m. Lily, I'm so sorry, but I have to go. Nathan's expecting me home. Lily's face fell. Oh, of course. I didn't realize how late it was. We got so caught up. She hesitated, then added softly, Marissa, is everything okay with you and Nathan? You seem on edge lately. For a moment, I considered confiding in her, but the words stuck in my throat. How could I tarnish her image of her brother? Everything's fine, I lied. Just busy with work, you know. I rushed home, my mind racing. As I pulled into the driveway, I saw Nathan's car already there. My heart sank. The moment I stepped inside, Nathan was on me. Where the hell have you been? He demanded, his face twisted with anger. I was with Lily, I explained quickly. We were discussing wedding plans. I lost track of time. Lost track of time? He sneered. Seems to be a habit with you lately. What about your actual job? Or have you forgotten about that too? As if on cue, my phone rang. It was Janice. I answered, my voice shaking. Janice, Marissa, where are the finalized details for the Goldstein wedding? Janice's voice was sharp with frustration. The ceremony is in 3 days, and the client is threatening to pull out if we don't have everything sorted by tomorrow morning. I felt the blood drain from my face. In the whirlwind of Lily's planning, I'd completely forgotten about the Goldstein wedding. I'll have everything to you first thing tomorrow, I promise, I said, my mind already racing through what needed to be done. As I hung up, Nathan's cold laughter filled the room. Looks like someone's in trouble at work. Maybe if you focused more on your job instead of playing fairy godmother to my sister, you wouldn't be in this mess. His words stung, but a part of me knew he was right. I was dropping balls left and right, failing at work and at home. Something had to give. I'll fix this, I said, more to myself than to Nathan. I'll make it right. Nathan's eyes narrowed. You better. And while you're at it, you might want to think long and hard about your priorities, because from where I'm standing, you're failing at everything. As he stormed out of the room, I sank to the floor, overwhelmed. I had a crucial decision to make. My career, my marriage, my relationship with Lily. Everything was hanging by a thread. and I knew that whatever I chose, something would have to be sacrificed. With shaking hands, I reached for my laptop. I had a long night ahead of me, and the choices I made in the coming hours would shape the rest of my life. The question was, what was I willing to lose? The weeks following my late-night scramble to save the Goldstein wedding were a blur of endless to-do lists and sleepless nights. I was determined to prove to everyone, Nathan, Janice, and myself, that I could handle it all. Lily's wedding plans were coming together beautifully, and I felt a glimmer of hope that maybe, just maybe, I could make this work. That hope shattered on a rainy Tuesday afternoon. I was on my way to meet with Lily's florist when my phone rang. It was Grace, Nathan's mother. "Marissa, dear," her voice trembled. "There's been an accident. Nathan's in the hospital." The world tilted on its axis. What happened? Is he okay? "Car accident. They say he'll be fine, but he's asking for you." I made a sharp U-turn, my heart pounding. As I sped towards the hospital, my phone buzzed incessantly. Lily, Janice, the florist. I ignored them all. At the hospital, I found Grace in the waiting room, her face pale with worry. "He's in there." She pointed to a room down the hall. "Go on, I'll wait here." I hesitated, then stepped into Nathan's room. He lay there, bruised and bandaged, looking more vulnerable than I'd ever seen him. For a moment, I saw the boy I fell in love with all those years ago. "Marissa," he croaked, reaching for my hand. "You came." "Of course I came," I said, squeezing his hand. "I was so worried." His grip tightened. I thought I might never see you again, and all I could think was how much I regretted our fight." Tears welled in my eyes. "Nathan, no, let me finish," he interrupted. "I've been horrible to you. I see that now. I want to change, to be better, for you, for us." I felt a weight lift from my chest. This was what I'd been waiting for, wasn't it? A chance to start over, to rebuild our marriage. But then my phone buzzed again. Lily's name flashed on the screen and reality came crashing back. I had responsibilities, commitments, people counting on me. "I have to take this," I said, stepping out of the room. "Marissa, where are you?" Lily's voice was frantic. "The florist is threatening to cancel if we don't finalize the order today." I glanced back at Nathan's room, torn. "Lily, I'm so sorry. There's been an accident. Nathan's in the hospital." "Oh my God, is he okay? Should I come?" No, he's fine. Just some bruises. Look, can you handle the florist? I'll make it up to you, I promise." There was a pause. "Of course, don't worry about it. Take care of Nathan." As I hung up, I saw Grace watching me, her expression unreadable. "Everything okay?" she asked. "Yes, just work stuff," I mumbled. She nodded slowly. "Marissa, I know it's not my place, but are you happy? Truly happy?" The question caught me off guard. Was I happy? I thought of Nathan's promise to change, of Lily's excitement for her wedding, of the career I'd worked so hard to build. How could I possibly choose? Before I could answer, a commotion erupted down the hall. Nurses rushed past us towards Nathan's room. My blood ran cold. "Code blue in room 305, someone shouted. I stood frozen as chaos unfolded around me. Grace's grip on my arm was painfully tight. In that moment, watching the medical team fight to save Nathan's life, I realized the true weight of my choices. If Nathan survived, could I really trust his promise to change? If I stayed, what would I be sacrificing? My career? My self-respect? But if I left, could I live with the guilt? As the alarms blared and doctors shouted orders, I knew I was standing at a crossroads. Whatever decision I made in the next few moments would irrevocably change the course of my life. The question was I brave enough to make it? The steady beep of the heart monitor was the only sound in Nathan's hospital room. He'd survived the code blue, but barely. The doctors called it a miracle. I called it a complication. "You have to be at Lily's wedding," Nathan rasped, his eyes boring into mine. "She needs you there." I shook my head, gesturing to his frail form. "Nathan, you just had a near-death experience. Lily will understand if I—" "No." He cut me off, his voice surprisingly strong. "You made a commitment, Todd. You're going." A chill ran down my spine. Even from a hospital bed, Nathan was trying to control me. I opened my mouth to argue, but Grace appeared in the doorway. "Marissa, dear," she said softly, "can I speak with you outside?" In the hallway, Grace's facade crumbled. "Lily just called. She's frantic. With Nathan in the hospital and you here, she's worried the wedding will fall apart." My heart sank. "I can't leave Nathan, Grace. He nearly died." Grace's eyes hardened. "Nathan will be fine. He has the best doctors. But Lily, This is her big day, you promised her. The weight of expectation pressed down on me. I felt like I was suffocating. I'll go, I heard myself say. Just let me say goodbye to Nathan. Back in the room, Nathan's lips curled into a triumphant smile. I knew you'd make the right choice, he said. Don't let me down. The drive to the wedding venue was a blur. My ribs ached from the accident, a constant reminder of the chaos my life had become. As I pulled up to the picturesque garden, I saw Lily pacing anxiously. Marissa, she cried, rushing towards me. Thank God you're here. Everything's falling apart. The caterer's late, the flowers are wrong, and... She stopped short, taking in my appearance. Are you okay? You look awful. I forced a smile. I'm fine, just a little banged up from the accident. Don't worry, I'll fix everything. The next few hours were a whirlwind of crisis management. I juggled vendors, rearranged seating charts, and soothed Lily's frayed nerves, all while ignoring the stabbing pain in my side and the constant buzz of my phone with updates from the hospital. As guests began to arrive, I ducked into a bathroom to catch my breath. The woman in the mirror was a stranger, pale, with dark circles under her eyes and a hospital gown peeking out from under her hastily thrown-on blazer. My phone buzzed again. Nathan. Where are you? His text read. The doctor wants to discuss my treatment plan. I closed my eyes, fighting back tears. How had I let things get this far? A knock at the door startled me. Marissa? It was Janice. Are you in there? We have a situation. I took a deep breath and opened the door. Janice's eyes widened at my appearance, but she pressed on. The groom's family is threatening to leave. Something about the seating arrangement? I'll handle it, I said automatically, my body moving on autopilot. As I navigated the brewing family drama, my vision began to blur. The pain in my side intensified, and I stumbled, catching myself on a nearby chair. Marissa? Lily's voice sounded far away. Are you okay? I tried to respond, but the words wouldn't come. The room spun, faces blurring together. I felt myself falling, powerless to stop it. As darkness closed in, I had a moment of startling clarity. I couldn't keep living like this, torn between everyone's expectations. Something had to give. The last thing I heard before losing consciousness was Lily's panicked voice calling my name. As I slipped into the void, I realized that this moment, this very public, very messy breakdown, might be the thing that finally set me free. But at what cost? I awoke to the harsh glare of fluorescent lights and the steady beep of a heart monitor. For a moment, I thought I was back in Nathan's hospital room. But as my vision cleared, I realized I was the patient this time. Lily's tear-stained face came into focus. Marissa, thank God you're awake. We were so worried. The wedding, I croaked, trying to sit up. What happened? Lily gently pushed me back down. Don't worry about that now. The doctor said you collapsed from exhaustion and stress. Your ribs were also more damaged than you let on. Shame washed over me. I'd ruined Lily's big day. I'm so sorry, Lily. I never meant to. Stop, she interrupted, her voice firm. This isn't your fault. It's Nathan's. I blinked, surprised by the venom in her tone. What do you mean? Lily's eyes flashed with anger. We know everything, Marissa, about how he's been treating you, the emotional abuse, the control. When you collapsed, your phone kept ringing. I answered it, and, well, let's just say Nathan showed his true colors. My heart raced. Lily, The door burst open, and Nathan stormed in, followed closely by Grace. There you are, he snarled. Do you have any idea what you've done? You've embarrassed this entire family. Nathan, Grace gasped. That's enough. But Nathan was beyond reason. He loomed over my bed, his face contorted with rage. I knew you couldn't handle it. You're weak, pathetic. I should have never married you. Something inside me snapped. Years of pent-up frustration and fear bubbled to the surface. You're right, Nathan, I said, my voice surprisingly steady. You shouldn't have married me, because I deserve better than you. The room fell silent. Nathan's face paled, then flushed with anger. What did you say to me? I sat up straighter, ignoring the pain in my side. I said, I deserve better. I'm done, Nathan. I want a divorce. You ungrateful bitch, he hissed, reaching for me. But before he could touch me, Lily stepped between us. Don't you dare, she warned. Touch her, and I'll make sure you regret it for the rest of your life. Nathan stumbled back, shock written across his face. Lily, you're taking her side? There are no sides, Nathan, Grace said, her voice heavy with disappointment. Only right and wrong, and what you've done to Marissa is wrong. I watched in amazement as my in-laws, the family I'd tried so hard to please, rallied around me. Tears streamed down my face, but for the first time in years, they were tears of relief. Nathan's gaze darted between us, realization dawning that he'd lost control. With a final venomous glare at me, he stormed out of the room. In the silence that followed, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. But as the adrenaline faded, fear crept in. What had I done? Where would I go? How would I start over? As if reading my mind, Janice appeared in the doorway. "I heard what happened," she said softly. "Marissa, I owe you an apology. I should have seen what was happening, but I want you to know your job is safe. In fact, I think it's time we discussed making you a partner in the business." I stared at her, overwhelmed. In the span of a few hours, my entire world had turned upside down. The future stretched before me, uncertain but full of possibility. "What do I do now?" I whispered, more to myself than anyone else. Lily squeezed my hand. "You heal, you rebuild, and we'll be here every step of the way." As I looked around at the faces of those who truly cared for me, I realized that this wasn't just the end of my marriage. It was the beginning of my freedom. The road ahead would be challenging, but for the first time in years, I felt ready to face it. Because finally, gloriously, I was free. 6 months after that fateful day in the hospital, I stood outside the courthouse, my hands trembling as I clutched a thick manila envelope. Inside were the final divorce papers, along with copies of the journal entries that had become my salvation. "Are you ready?" Lily asked, squeezing my arm gently. I took a deep breath and nodded. "As I'll ever be." We walked into the courtroom, my heart pounding. Nathan was already there, his face a mask of cold indifference. But I saw the flicker of surprise in his eyes when he noticed Lily by my side. As the proceedings began, I felt a strange calm wash over me. This was it. The end of one chapter, the beginning of another. "Your Honor," my lawyer began, "I'd like to submit these journal entries as evidence of the emotional abuse my client endured throughout her marriage." Nathan's lawyer objected, but the judge overruled him. As excerpts from my journal were read aloud, I watched Nathan's facade crumble. The charming mask he wore for the world slipped away, revealing the monster beneath. Grace, sitting in the back of the courtroom, let out a choked sob. I caught her eye, seeing the pain and regret there. She mouthed a silent "I'm sorry," and I nodded, feeling a weight lift from my shoulders. When it was my turn to speak, I stood tall, my voice steady. "Your Honor, for years I lived in fear. I sacrificed my dreams, my self-worth, everything that made me who I am, to please a man who was never satisfied. Today I'm reclaiming my life." I turned to Nathan, meeting his gaze head-on. "I forgive you, Nathan. Not for your sake, but for mine. I'm letting go of the pain, the anger, the shame. From this day forward, I choose me." The judge's gavel came down, granting the divorce and a restraining order against Nathan. It was over. Outside the courthouse, Janice was waiting with a bouquet of flowers. "Congratulations, partner," she said, pulling me into a hug. "Ready to plan your freedom party?" I laughed, feeling lighter than I had in years. "You bet, but first, I have one last thing to do." I walked over to Grace, who stood alone, looking lost. "Grace," I said softly. She turned, tears in her eyes. "Marissa, I'm so sorry. I should have seen what was happening. I should have protected you." I took her hands in mine. "You're here now. That's what matters." "But I've lost everything," she whispered. "My son, my family." I shook my head. "No, you haven't. Lily and I, we're still your family, if you want us to be." Grace broke down, pulling me into a fierce hug. Over her shoulder, I saw Nathan watching us, his face twisted with anger and defeat. For a moment, our eyes met, and I felt a final surge of pity for the man I once loved. Then I turned away, leaving him and the past behind. That evening, surrounded by friends and family, my chosen family, I raised a glass. "To new beginnings," I toasted. As laughter and love filled the room, I caught my reflection in a mirror. The woman staring back at me was stronger, wiser, and finally, truly free. I smiled, realizing that the greatest revenge wasn't in destroying Nathan, but in rebuilding myself. My phone buzzed with a text from a new client, eager to plan her vow renewal. I grinned, excited for the future and all its possibilities. Because now, at last, I was writing my own happily ever after.